This is episode number 187. Today, we're featuring Georgia Mansur, an American artist living and working in Australia for most of her life. You don't want to miss this one.
This is the PleinAir Podcast with Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of PleinAir magazine. In the PleinAir Podcast, we cover the world of outdoor painting. Called plein air, the French coined the term, which means open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others say plein air. No matter how you say it, there is a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is about that movement. Now, here's your host, author, publisher, and painter, Eric Rhoads.
Well, thank you, announcer Jim Kipping, and welcome to the PleinAir Podcast. Yep, that's my name. I'm Eric, and I'm coming to you from the wilderness in the North Country, the Adirondacks in upstate New York, and the leaves are just kind of barely starting to turn a little bit. You can sense that they're like all about to want to change, but there's little spots of color here and there in some of the woods, but not a lot yet, but I'm getting excited to paint it. I'm also excited to go to Fall Color Week, which is going to be all about painting fall color in New Hampshire, the White Mountains of New Hampshire, where the Hudson River school painters painted their famous scenes, and we have a pretty much full house. I think we had a couple of people. Well, we had a few people dropped out early on because of COVID, and so we've got some seats left, but it's going to take place. It's going to be in person. And of course, if it doesn't take place for some reason, then there's a 100% money back guarantee on that. So I think we probably got 8, maybe 10, maybe 12 seats left. I'm not sure about that yet. But anyway, you want to check it out. It's called Fall Color Week, and it's at fallcolorweek.com. I've been doing some nocturne painting this week, and that's been a lot of fun. I did one in the rain. It was a little bit cold and a little bit runny, and I tried to be under shelter, and it worked out pretty well, but it was a little tough. I learned something about nocturne painting, though. I borrowed a headlamp. I couldn't find mine, and mine is pretty light. And I borrowed a headlamp from a guy I know, and he's got one of these rechargeable ones, and it was so super bright that every time it blasted the canvas, it blew my eyes out, and then I couldn't see the subject, so I stopped using it. It was just too much. But anyway, I normally have a better operation for that, but I couldn't find my stuff for whatever reason. I'm up here in the Adirondacks, and things get scattered. So anyway, I learned that, and I'm trying to learn what I learned on my daily broadcast from Carl Bretsky. I had Carl on the other day, and he was talking about how to paint the light and how to make the light look real. And I never had known that before, and it just really made a huge difference. If you want to find that episode, I do it daily on YouTube and daily on Facebook. So just scroll through on my Eric Rhoads on Facebook and see if you can find the Carl Bretsky one. I'm doing a broadcast every day at noon. If you didn't know that, every day at noon Eastern, 168 days in a row now, I think, and no days off. And so basically what I'm doing is interviewing artists. Sometimes I talk about art marketing, other things, but we're doing some demos. We're doing a lot of stuff, and we're doing it every day. And so anyway, it's a cool thing, and you want to become a part of it, and just go to Streamline Art Video on Facebook, or Eric Rhoads on Facebook, or go to YouTube and search Streamline Art Video, and you can find it. By the way, I'd love for you to friend me, but I can't take any more friends because I'm at my limit, but you can follow anyway, and that way you can be getting it. And you can friend me at Eric Rhoads Publisher, which is a different site, but it's getting a lot of the same stuff. By the way, speaking of live, coming up is our massive Realism Live online conference, and it's the whole world of painters getting together. This is a conference that really is all the things we want to learn to paint, right? It's got landscape, it's got plein air, of course, and it's also got still life and floral and figures and portraits and color and all the things that you want to learn, and it's going to be great. It's 5 full days, actually 4 full days, and a beginner's day is a 5th day. And you want to take advantage of that. Beginner's Day is actually first, and that way you get these subjects and kind of brought down to basics level. But here are some of the people, and there's more going to be added, but Kathy Anderson, Juliet Aristides, Stefan Baumann. Now, there's 2 Stefan Baumans. This is the figurative painter. Tony Sirenai, Mark D'Alessio, Rose Franson, Dan Gerhardt, Dan Graves, Cornelia Herons, Victoria Herrera, Joshua LaRock, Jeff Legg, Kathy Odom, Graydon Parrish, William Schneider, Daniel Sprick, Jean Stern, Connor Walton from Ireland, Peter Trippi, and of course me as your host. And so check it out. It's going to be coming up in October as well. And if for about a tenth of what you would pay to go to a live convention, you can attend this. And there's different levels, and just check it out. It's at realismlive.com. Coming up after the interview, I'm going to be answering your art marketing questions in the Marketing Minute. But first, let's get right to Australia and our interview with Georgia Mansur. Georgia Mansur, welcome to the PleinAir Podcast.
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're going to have a slight delay because we're going quite the distance. You're in Australia. Where in Australia are you?
Right now I'm living in Palm Beach, Sydney, on the east coast of Australia.
Okay. Outstanding.
So it's 8 o'clock in the morning for me on Tuesday. And what time is it there for you? Well,
it's 6 p.m., but of course people will be listening to this at all kinds of different times. So how did you get to Australia?
It was actually my husband's family that immigrated here in 1984 is when I moved. And we got married right after college and moved straight over here to help them start a cotton farm in the outback. And 36 years later, I'm still here and loving it.
Yeah, so it's home now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've lived here longer than I had growing up. You know, I moved when I was 22. So, yeah, it's definitely home here. My kids are all born here. It's home for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's something I've not done yet. I've not visited. I need to do that. We've talked about that. We've talked about doing PleinAir events over there. We need to do that at some point. So when did this whole painting thing begin for you?
I've always been kind of a creative person, I guess. I had my first exhibition in California when I was 16. It's still in high school. And at that point, I was just doing oil paints. But, yeah, I think I changed over to water media when I had young kids at home. And I needed, something a little bit safer. I was just painting on the kitchen table, and I needed something I could pack up and put away really quickly,
right,
and not have all little hands in there trying to help.
Right.
Watercolor was easier for me.
Yeah, and then tell me about your development as an artist.
Gosh, I don't know. It's been an organic thing, really. I think I took some electives in college, and I took it, all through high school, of course. But then over the last, 25 years or so, I've been doing the summer schools at the university here in Bathurst, and got to study with some really great Australian artists over that time in all different media, and have explored every kind of genre and media that you can imagine. And it's been just sort of evolving over the years. And then, I think plein air painting has been the thing that has grabbed me the most, because it's just been so, challenging, I guess is the word for it. It really excites all of your senses at the same time. So that's been the passion for the last, however many years.
And so when did that begin? And was there a particular moment that kind of made you go, aha, I need to take it outside?
I think Joseph Zbukvik was one of my influences and teachers from 20 years ago or so. And, he's just done it all. And he basically said, you can learn as many techniques and things as you want, but the real teacher is Mother Nature. And until you get out there and are out in the field, you won't know what I'm talking about. It's just not the same as painting from photos or, from your imagination or whatever. It's Mother Nature is the best teacher.
Yeah. Boy, that's so true. That's a great line. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what
I
happened
think
then? So you started studying under some people like that, and then you've had quite a career. How did that all develop?
I don't know. It's crazy. I think it just sort of developed organically. As I said, I think that the more that you do, the more opportunities that you have, and you get some recognition somehow, whether it's, writing for Australian Artist Magazine sometimes, or teaching a workshop, and it's just word of mouth. Other people hear about you. I mean, I did some artists in residencies out at Hamilton Island here in the Great Barrier Reef, and I designed a program for the Emirates at in the Blue Mountains, and Cable Beach at Broome, where they have the camels on the beach, and just different things like that, where you get contact with lots of different people from all walks of life, and they recommend you, and then people start ringing you to come and teach, and I guess it just kind of goes from there. I really can't say there was a straight path or a plan that I had for it. I just knew that I really enjoyed teaching, and that's how it's kind of developed.
Well, that's kind of what happened with us. Is I think you attended the PleinAir convention, and then we met, we saw your work, and then we eventually invited you to teach.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who would have guessed that? I mean, I was more surprised than anyone.
Well, I think we were both surprised. I mean, that serendipity, though, is where the best things come from. I meet so many people at the convention and see really great painters that I had never really discovered, or our editors hadn't discovered. And so, we always send the editors out, and of course, I'm there because I'm the host, and we always discover artists at the convention. It's really been a treat. So it certainly was a treat discovering you, and of course, you were already very prominent in the watercolor training circles. You are an art ambassador for some companies. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I'm an art ambassador or international ambassador for Daniel Smith watercolors, and I have my own palette. And then I've been trained and certified by Golden Artist Colors in acrylics and all of the gels, pastes, and grounds and different things that they have as well. And then I have my own line of brushes with Rosemary & Co., our mutual lovely friends, Rosemary and Simi, over in the UK. So those are the main things, main brands that I represent and have the privilege of demonstrating and love using.
So when you're outdoors, are you mostly doing watercolor? Are you doing acrylic? Or are you doing both?
Well, I started doing watercolor, but I saw that a lot of people were either doing oils or acrylics. So I'm traveling about 8 months of the year, normally teaching somewhere in the world. And so traveling with oil paints is not my best option. I really prefer something that washes up with soap and water. So I'll either use watercolor, acrylic, or the water-soluble oils from Daniel Smith. And basically, if I have a workshop and I've got watercolors and acrylic artists in the class, I can demonstrate, say, in the morning in watercolor, in the afternoon in acrylics, and everybody is covered. And I do that often. I'll have a mix in my classes. So, I like to be able to mix it up a bit, and you cross-pollinate and learn different things from different media. And, the people benefit from seeing both of the demos. And yeah, I enjoy them both. I can't choose. They're both amazing. So that's what I do.
And I know a lot about painting watercolor outdoors, but I don't know much about painting acrylic outdoors. I know that, you hear that acrylic dries pretty fast, but there's also Golden makes the open acrylics. Tell me about painting outdoors with acrylics.
So the first time I painted in the south of France, I was using just regular heavy body acrylics, and it was so hot and so dry that my brush actually stuck to my painting. And I thought, okay, this is just nuts. Because, and Australia has similar conditions. We have really, really hot and dry areas as well. So I thought there's got to be a better way. And that's when I got onto the golden open acrylics, and they dry on your painting, within a couple hours or that day, so that you can, carry them back to your vehicle or wherever you are. But if you put a wet sponge in your palette and seal it, tightly, they stay wet indefinitely. So, you never waste paint, and they stay wetter for longer. And so that works really well for me. And whenever I'm teaching, I'm always using the golden opens. They just are magic. I really can't say enough about nothing else like them.
Uh-huh.
And I really enjoy them.
So perhaps, what a lot of people like to do is that there are people listening all over the world, and there are people listening who have not necessarily tried all the mediums and so on. Maybe it would be a good idea to talk about some ideas, some tips, some techniques on plein air painting. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, let's do that, because it is pretty exciting and challenging. I like when I'm out in the field, I think, the most important thing that I can do is to respond to what I'm seeing in front of me. And, rather than make a photographic representation of what I'm seeing, I like to kind of absorb what I'm seeing and then interpret it. And what I'm actually painting is more the way that it makes me feel, because that's the whole beauty of being outdoors, in nature, is that it makes you feel. It's the only thing that I know of, the challenge that, ignites your head, your heart, and your soul all together, enmeshed all at once. And you're activating all those senses. So if you can boil down how you feel into the essence of what you see and how it makes you feel, then that's what you paint. And, that is a lot easier said than done, and very challenging with, the light changing, the weather changing, maybe, your subject drives away or, we've all had that happen. So you have to be pretty quick in just capturing that essence. So the first thing that I do is try to look for the big shapes and values. And I do a quick little value study in my sketchbook. Just, boil it down to a few, 3 to 5 shapes of dark and light. And then I try to, link all those shapes together and simplify it. And then I start looking about my color palette. What mood is it creating? And that's how I create mood with color. So, yeah, that's basically how I approach it. And I just try to do it really quickly and just simplify and not add lots and lots of extraneous detail. If it doesn't add to my subject, I leave it out. If it doesn't add to the message that I'm trying to create, then I don't worry about it. I just try and get down the essence.
And what's the best way to train yourself to do that? Because that's easy, like you said, it's easier said than done.
I think, when I first started out, I was able to use, a few different tools. And I think that one of the tools that I really enjoy is using my phone as a value viewer. I can actually take a photo on the scene and turn it to black and white or grayscale and immediately have a value plan for what I'm seeing there, the light, the midtones, and the darks. And that's something that, in the olden days you had to do just by squinting with your eyes and kind of looking through your lashes. But now we have technology. We can use our phone to immediately get a value plan and it just makes it really easy to get down your shapes and values quickly, and it gives you a lot more time to think about your color palette and actually painting what's before you.
Are you using a particular app, or is this just converting a photo to a black and white?
In the beginning, there was a wonderful app made by Lori Putnam's husband, Mark, called the Value Viewer, but I think it's no longer available. So I just went to my photo program, or my photos on my phone, and just changed it to black and white. And it's really simple to do it that way. And pretty much anybody with a smartphone can do that. So, it's accessible to everyone, really.
Uh-huh. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So help the beginner here. What is, it takes courage to go outside and paint when you're not used to doing that. Help the beginner here and walk them through your full process.
Okay. Well, first thing when you get on site, is to look around and use your fingers to create a little viewfinder and see what grabs you, what grabs your attention, because if it doesn't grab you and you don't know why you want to paint something, then there's no point. It has to move you in some way to be able to paint something well. I think you have to feel it, and it doesn't have to be an extraordinary subject, but it has to make you feel something in its in its beauty, whether it's just the authenticity of something, the truth of the beauty of what you see. I mean, we've all seen artists like Jennifer McChristian and Mike Hernandez and different people like that can just take any subject that's, a construction site or something, a little alleyway or something that nobody would look twice at, and they turn it into this beautiful subject. So there are no beautiful subjects. It's what you bring to the subject that makes it beautiful, and that's you're bringing yourself and your vision and how it makes you feel. So that's the main thing, is know why you want to paint something in the first place. That's very important for me. You've got to get excited about it, or else if you're not excited about it, nobody else is going to be either.
It makes
so that's
sense.
The first step. Pardon?
I said it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of being out there in the field, is that, you got to get excited. And that it is exciting being out there. So you can turn 360 degrees and find several subjects without ever moving your feet. But if you're not excited about it, there's no point.
Now you will spend a lot of time doing plein air painting. If you go out, will you do several paintings? Will you do just one? What's your typical day painting like?
I think it's probably prudent to find a good spot and paint a few different angles from the same area if you really want to get to know an area really well, get to know the light, get to know the atmosphere. And if you're in a good spot, and I know, if you got to haul your gear, hike it up a mountain or somewhere, it's kind of, you might as well make the most of your time in that spot and get, a couple of different views before you have to break it down and pack it up and move somewhere else. So I kind of like to do that. I kind of like to paint in the same area and really explore that area if I can. And it feels like, you've really been there. You've really explored it and discovered it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next thing that I like to do is to look for the shapes and values, like I said before, and just really break it down and simplify it. And that's how you do it. You break it into big shapes and values. And then another thing that that I like to do with color, and especially for a beginner, this is really important. Is I think that with beginners, they like to use every color that they have because color is intoxicating. It really is, and you just want to use them all, but that doesn't necessarily make a great painting. If it looks like visual vomit, you don't want that. You really want.
That's a term I've not heard before.
Well, we've all seen it. Come on. But I think, if you want to have color harmony in your paintings, you pick a few colors, a limited palette, and you mix from those few colors to really get color harmony. And I think, especially for a beginner, choose five or six colors that, you want to use and mix from that pile, and just make it work from that, and you'll automatically get color harmony because they'll all be working well together. So one of the things, and I'm going to be teaching this on Zoom soon too for the Susan K. Black Foundation in September, is about color mixing. I created a thing on my easel, which is I put a piece of glass in the bottom of my pochade box, and I put a piece of gray paper underneath the glass. And then I went to a local paint store and I got 5 different swatches of paint from white to black. So it's basically the gray scale of white to black. And I'll put them on underneath the glass, on the gray piece of paper. And so when I'm mixing my paint, let's say I look out into the landscape and I see a value of 3. I go 1, 2, 3 on those little swatches of paint. And let's say I have a tree that I want to mix a green. So I get a little yellow, a little blue. And then on that 1, 2, 3, the third swatch of gray, because it's that particular mid-tone, I'll mix the color right on top of that swatch. And if I squint my eyes, I can no longer see a difference between the swatch of that gray and the color that I'm actually mixing. I know that I've got the exact right tone or value of 1, 2, 3 mid-tone, and I know that I've got the right color. So I don't know, it's a little bit hard to describe over the phone.
No, but it makes sense, makes total sense.
Yeah. And let's say if I want to make it warmer or cooler, then but I want to keep it that same value, I just bend it to warm or bend it to cool by adding either a blue undertone based paint or a yellow undertone based paint to make it cooler for bluer, cooler, or warmer with the yellow. So
do you always put a little bit of undertone on your paper or on your canvas?
Well, let's say if I'm doing an acrylic or an oil, I would use say burnt sienna or transparent red oxide is actually what I use. It's similar to burnt sienna as an undertone, an underpainting, and I do my light, my mid-tone and dark with that, and I white back my light while it's still wet back to white. You can't really do that with watercolor, so you have to preserve your white. But it's interesting to see them side by side, how it works for watercolor and for acrylic. It's a little bit different process, but the principle is the same. The principle is the same. You want your light, your mid-tone, and dark within your first, pass of your painting. Mm-hmm. You establish those 3 values straight away, and then you work with color.
So talk to me about the plein air movement in Australia. Is there one? We have a lot of events here in America. We have a lot of people going outdoors to paint here in America, and I'm just curious about Australia.
Well, funny you should ask. There is really no plein air movement, so to speak. However, there like organized events and things like that. There was up until recently, up until this year, only one plein air prize given, and that was through the Parliament of New South Wales, and they've just scrapped that prize just because of funding, I guess. But there are many people that go out and paint in plein air that are just painting out on location. Not nearly as many as in the U.S., for sure. But that's why I love coming to the U.S. and meeting up with other, colleagues and other plein air artists and friends. And I've met so many friends over the years through the plein air conventions. And, we've painted together all over the world, not just in the U.S., but in Europe and other places, UK and everywhere, France, Italy, you name it. So that's been fantastic for me. But really, our population is not huge to start with. There's probably more people in the Los Angeles basin than there are in the whole continent of Australia, even though landmass is similar to the United States. We're not as populated. So that's one reason. But another reason is there's just no real organization of plein air movement for events and activities or competitions. So, it's not really a thing here yet. Maybe it will be one day, but
well, you need to get busy and make it happen, huh?
Yeah.
What are you waiting for?
I know. Well, I need you to come over and give me a hand.
I'd be happy to. Yeah. Well, we'll have to work on that. You get everybody together. I'll come over and we'll do a little plein air thing over there.
That would be awesome. I've had so many wonderful friends that said, if you plan something, we'll come. But as you know, those things are pretty logistically. It takes more than one person to plan it. Let me tell you, I've tried, and I've had lots of people say, just give us the word and we'll be there. Richard and Schmidt and Nancy Kuzik and Kwang Ho and Scott Christensen, lots of people have said, we'd love to come to Australia, but we just I need a little bit of help, I think, if I'm going to plan something. I can't do it all on my own.
Well, these things do take a lot of people to do them. And it's a commitment in time. Now, you travel considerably. Under normal times, you travel to the States a lot, and that's a 14-hour flight or something? It's pretty big.
Yeah, that to the States is easier than to Europe for me, because Australia's a long way from pretty much everywhere. So it takes me about 3 days in total from door to door when I'm going to Europe, because you have to stop somewhere in Asia or, United Arab Emirates or somewhere along the way, because it's just too long of a flight. It's, you have to take 2 really, really big flights. So, and you have to allow for jet lag and all the rest of it. So, when I do teach overseas in Europe or the UK, I try to do several back-to-back workshops. I allow a few days for travel and recovery and regrouping. But, it's a big flight, so you want to make the most of your time there. So I'm probably there for 6 or 8 weeks at a time when I'm doing that, and I try to get in 3 or 4 workshops in different countries. Things are closer over there once you get there. You can be in France in one day, in Italy the next day, Croatia or Greece the next day. So, that's not a problem once you're there. It's just getting the big flights, the big international flights, and usually stop in Hong Kong or Japan or Singapore or wherever, Malaysia, it doesn't matter. But you've got to get there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a tall order. And under normal circumstances, how many times a year are you doing that? That seems like it's a long time away from home.
If I added up all of my teaching, both overseas in Australia and New Zealand, it would add up to about 8 months of the year.
Really?
But I don't do it all in one hit. Yeah. No, I don't do it all in one hit. I go somewhere, I teach there for a while, then I come back home and I regroup, spend time with my family, and then, I go again. So, I try to be gone. Like, this is the first time I've been at home all winter, because today is actually our first day of spring here, September 1st. And the first winter that I've spent at home in probably, I don't know how many years, not traveling. But yeah, I like to be in the warmer weather if I can be, and avoid winter whenever possible. So I go to this, the opposite hemisphere, to spend that time over there.
What's your winter like where you live?
Well, where I live, it's pretty mild. Where two of my kids live out in Bathurst, which is out in the country, and I was there on the weekend, and there was snow on the ground still.
Oh my.
Yeah. But that's not normal. I mean, it gets pretty cold out there, but not big snows like you have in the U.S. There is a little snowy mountain area in a couple of different places here in Australia, but we don't have the big mountains like you do in the U.S. or in Europe. It's just not the same. And it's mostly warmer here, I would say. Growing up in California, I would say that my climate is very similar to there, but there's just more days of summer and less days of winter. We would have 3 or 4 months of winter here, where it's the opposite for you there.
So, are you still doing, or under normal circumstances? Obviously, these are strange times, but are you still doing a number of plein air events, or have you kind of gotten off that circuit?
Well, for this year, I had all of my workshops booked overseas and in Australia and New Zealand. All have been canceled because of, the pandemic. So I'm working on planning events for 2021 and 2022. But I'm sort of trying to play it by ear, because we just don't know what's going to happen,
Right.
as you well know.
Yeah, we all have to learn to pivot.
Yeah, and so the events that I am planning are for the second half of next year, just to be on the safe side. And even then, I don't know if I am being on the safe side. Well, I guess that remains to be seen. But yeah, as soon as, things go back to normal, I'll be the first one on a plane to travel, let me tell you. I'm restless. I'm really used to flying a lot, and I love it. And, I miss all my friends and students around the world, and I can't wait. I can't wait to get back to whatever is normal, or the new normal with travel.
So I think I remember you telling me that you designed some wine labels. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it does. So for the previous 25 years, I only just moved in October to the beach here where I am now in Sydney. But before that, I lived in a wine growing region called Mudgee. And Mudgee is the Aboriginal name for nest in the hills. And that's exactly what it was, a beautiful little wine growing area. And so I started designing wine labels as favors for some of my neighbors. And of course, they pay me in wine, so who could argue with that? And I've done quite a few over the years. And actually on my way out to my grandson's birthday party last weekend, I called in to one of the wineries and picked up, a few cases of wine with my newest label on it. It's called my G Red Gold. So, yeah, that's one of the perks of being an artist. I think you can do contract trades for wine if you like wine, or whatever you design.
So are
you're
doing paintings, landscape paintings on these wine labels?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And, you just work with the winemaker, and they tell you what their vision is. And so you try to figure that out. And then, you create a few options of paintings for them, and hopefully they like one of them, and away you go.
Well, makes total sense. The only thing you have to be careful is that you don't do too many wine labels, because you'll be drinking all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do like my wine. With our vineyard, I thought one day maybe we would have a winery. It didn't eventuate that we did our own winery, but I did a graduate diploma in wine business. So I do love wine and everything about it. So I am a bit of a wine enthusiast, if you will.
Well, there's a big difference between a wine enthusiast and a wine snob. So I'm glad you're a wine enthusiast. So what was the first plein air event that you participated in? Do you remember?
I do. It was San Clemente in California. And there I met some really great other plein air artists. And we're still friends today. And whenever we meet up, we like to paint together. And that was a lot of fun. They gave me so many tips and things I didn't know that you were supposed to know about. Like when you go to a plein air event, you have to have your frames and everything all ready to go, so that when you at the end of the event, you frame it up and they're ready for sale within hours of painting them. And I didn't know that. So yeah, they helped me out a lot. That was Carol Gray Wyman and Al Tuffanelli and Sergio Lopez. Some of those friends that I painted together with that week. That was really fun, and we're still friends today. And I visited them the last time I was back in California, up in Petaluma. So Peggy Kroll Roberts was doing a workshop up there. So it was great to catch up with all of them.
Well, this has been fun. I really appreciate you taking the time today. Any final thoughts for everybody before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you for having me on, and I'm really looking forward to next year's Plein Air Convention in Colorado. Is it still happening in Colorado at this stage?
It's supposed to. We'll just have to have our fingers crossed and hope it does, right?
Yeah, that's right. That would be awesome, catching up with everyone. And I want to encourage everyone, even if you've never painted outdoors, plein air before, to come to the convention, because you will learn so much. It will make your head explode how much there is to learn. And by the end of that week, even if you don't feel confident, that you've ever painted outdoors before, you will gain so much and benefit so much from seeing all the demonstrations and being out in the field with all these artists. It's just amazing. So I encourage you to come along, because it's just awesome. I mean, one of my students who had never painted plein air before is now one of your on faculty at Plein Air Convention, and that's Barbara Tapp. Look at her. She had no confidence to paint plein air when she first started. And look at her now. There's just no stopping her. It just makes me so proud.
Well, that's one of the best things about this entire community, is that there is first off, everybody's really friendly. Everybody's really helpful with one another and supportive. And we've made such great friends. And of course, that's exactly right. We're watching people like Barbara and others who are rising and becoming very well known and becoming teachers themselves.
Exactly. And it's just plain fun. That's the key to it all. The more fun you have, the more you learn.
Yeah, well, that's a slogan, I guess. Just plain fun or just plain fun.
Yeah.
Well, Georgia, thank you so much for being on the PleinAir Podcast. I really appreciate you doing this today.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure. And hope you have a good week.
Well, thanks again to Georgia Mansur. I really love talking to her. She's really a great lady. You guys ready for some marketing ideas?
This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
In the Marketing Minute, I answer your art marketing questions, and the way to submit them is just to email me, eric@artmarketing.com. There is no stupid question. That's how we learn, right? Okay, here's a question. Here, this is a stupid question. No, I'm just kidding. This is a question from Amy in Chicago. Amy's going to hate me. She's never going to write in again. Anyway, she says, isn't social media marketing enough? Why would I ever pay for advertising? Well, I'm not suggesting you should pay for advertising. You have to figure out, all of us have to figure out what our strategy is and what our tactics are and what you're trying to accomplish. Do you want to sell art? Do you want to brand yourself? Do you want to get invited to events? What is the purpose of your marketing, and then that will determine what you need to do. We have these misperceptions, though, about social media. There are a lot of people think, well, all I got to do is put my stuff on social media and my stuff will sell. It's kind of like saying, does anybody remember phone books? It's kind of like saying, well, I just put my name in the phone book and people will call me. Well, the phone book's filled with lots of people. It's like having a website. Oh, I just got to put up a website and everybody will discover me. No, that's not true. I mean, some might by an accidental search, but the reality is that they're going to discover websites when you promote them. And so the same is true with other things. Now, if you're promoting on social media and you're doing it properly and it works for you and you're making money and you're getting your goals accomplished, then that's all you need, quite frankly. Why would you pay for advertising? Why would anybody? Why do tens of thousands of businesses advertise? It's because they get a return on their investment. They're trying to reach people they don't have. We have this belief that everybody on social media is getting our post. And the reality is that on Facebook, only 2 to 3% ever see any post that you do. That means if you had 5,000 followers, which is their max, only 2 to 3% will ever see that post. And sometimes it's the same people all the time because there's these algorithms that they use. And so as a result, you want to be aware that you're not necessarily reaching people. Now, there's a lot of strategies I teach in Art Marketing Boot Camp at the conventions about how to penetrate that, how to make that work for you. But the reality is you also need to make sure you got the right people following you, and you've got to have the right messaging. So if you're going after collectors, for instance, or people who are buying art, and you got to go after people who you know are going to be the kind of people that you want. And so you got to fill up your followers with that. You can't be talking to other artists, and talking about artist stuff that other artists are interested in. You got to be talking the things that other collectors are interested in. So you got to change your tactics. And most of us have our Facebook pages or Instagram pages filled with our friends. And as a result, we're not necessarily getting the right kind of followers. And that's why it typically doesn't work for people. It might work for you. And that's great if it does. But advertising is about reaching people you're not reaching, and the ability to target to reach people that you that are in a particular category. Like if you want to target people who are known art buyers or known art collectors, then you go to places where you know they are. Like my magazines, PleinAir Magazine, Fine Art Connoisseur, etc. So I pay for advertising. I spend a lot of money on advertising. I can't even say how much. It's a lot, but it works for me, and I get a return. And so the more I spend, the more return I typically get. And it takes time. It builds up over time, but then it just keeps returning as long as I feed it. So that's why I do it. All right. Next question comes from John in San Francisco, who asks, how important is it to have consistency in the way that you market your brand? Do you have any tips for being consistent in branding? John, good question. Thank you. Well, think about your favorite brands. Think about any brand. The biggest, or it used to be, I don't know if it still is, but the biggest, most well-known brand in the world was McDonald's. What if they started using green arches? Or what if Apple started using yellow on their logo instead of black or silver, whatever they use? These are little things that matter. People are creatures of habit. They want to be comfortable. They get to know you. It's like a friend that you know, you recognize, right? I remember some actress, can't remember who it was, had plastic surgery. And it's like, I didn't recognize her anymore. And so it was very uncomfortable for me, and I've never gotten used to it. So I think the idea is that you create a look, a consistent look, and you want to stick with it. You want to be careful, though. A lot of artists are using their signatures as their logo, and that's okay, but you don't want to use signatures alone because the ad needs to have, or the logo needs to have the name under it. Because people can't usually read signatures unless it's very, very easily readable. And even then, I would not assume they can read it, So it just doesn't hurt to make sure you do that. But you want to look for things like consistency, color theme, consistency, same look, same type, everything on your business cards, your website, everything you do, your brochures, everything. You want that comfort of consistency. Also, you just want to make sure that you're reinforcing your brand constantly. You've got to, we all think that everybody knows who we are. You run one ad and you think everybody knows who you are. That's not true. You have to build it up over time. It takes time and time and time again. I always talk about repetition is the key to everything. You've got to have repetition to the same audiences. People don't even respond to things until they've seen you 7 times in a short amount of period of time. So you got to figure out, how do I solve that problem? It's about repetition. All right. Anyway, that's my tips on art marketing today.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.
A reminder to register now for Fall Color Week. There's a few seats left, and we're going to do it live, and we're going to do it safely. So it's at fallcolorweek.com. It's in New Hampshire. Just drive on up or fly across the country. Maybe you don't want to fly. Anyway, come. We'd love to have you. It's going to be fun. Finally, we get to get out. Maybe. And if not, we have a guarantee on there so that you get your money back if you can't. Also, sign up for Realism Live, this giant online art conference. I think we're going to hit a world record number of people painting together live online, because we are going to have segments where we paint together, and we're going to have segments where we are interacting with one another. You're making friends with the world. And of course, you're seeing these incredible instructors. Check it out at realismlive.com. Also, if you have not seen my blog, where I talk about life, art, and other things, check it out. It's called Sunday Coffee, and you can find it at coffeewitheric.com. Well, this is always fun. We'll do it again sometime, like next week. I'll see you then. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine, and you can find us at outdoorpainter.com on our website for plein air people. Remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
This has been the PleinAir Podcast with PleinAir Magazine's Eric Rhoads. You can help spread the word about plein air painting by sharing this podcast with your friends. And you can leave a review or subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And you can even reach Eric by email, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to pick up our free ebook, 240 plein air painting tips by some of America's top painters. It's free at pleinairtips.com. Tune in next week for more great interviews. Thanks for listening.